The last couple of Zelda games have taken place in Hyrule, however, given we've spent 8 years exploring these lands in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, is it time to go somewhere else? Today I want to take a look at where the next Legend of Zelda game could take place. Well, if you enjoyed the video, hit that subscribe button down below for even more Zelda content here on Triforce Times, and stay tuned to the end of the video for an exclusive offer to channel members. While Hyrule is the main location for the Zelda series, sometimes Nintendo veered off into different lands, including Termina in Majora's Mask and Koholint Island for Link's Awakening. However, these new lands and locations are few and far between, with Hyrule being the main setting for the Legend of Zelda back on the Nintendo Entertainment System, Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess and Breath of the Wild. In some cases, the same version of Hyrule has been used multiple times, including in A Link to the Past, Echoes of Wisdom, and A Link Between Worlds. Well, let's have a look at some of the options when it comes to new locations, and then I want to dive into some community ideas regarding where the next Legend of Zelda game could take place. Well, first of all, we've got Termina. So fans have been calling to go back to Termina for years, given the popularity of Majora's Mask. It's amazing that the Zelda team created this world in only 12 months. Yes, many of the assets were reused from Ocarina of Time, but it's the story, the setting, the characters that all of us fell in love with when it comes to Termina and Majora's Mask. So I would love to go back and explore. I think that world could work really well in an open world setting. Imagine just for a second Breath of the Wild crossed with Majora's Mask. Well, next up we've got a dark world. So A Link to the Past is my favourite Zelda game, and in that version of Zelda we've got a regular Hyrule and then a dark world version of Hyrule where the place is scarier and enemies are much tougher than they were before. Tears of the Kingdom kind of had its own version of a dark world down in the depths below Hyrule. However, I would love to revisit an actual dark world, especially in full 3D open world style. We could do the reverse of A Link to the Past, where we've got a main game set in the dark world with occasional visits to a light version of Hyrule. So this also touches on another idea. I would love to see an even darker version of Zelda. Twilight Princess had more realistic graphics and a grittier, darker storyline. I think it would be really interesting for the Legend of Zelda to go down a similar path to Elden Ring and create a really dark, scary version of Hyrule. Given the power of the Switch 2, the Zelda team could create a gothic, scary, dangerous version of Hyrule that is really oppressive to exist in. Whether Nintendo would ever go down this route remains to be seen, but that is what I want from the next Zelda game. Follow the path set by Elden Ring and create one of the most memorable Zelda experiences ever made. Well, next up we've got an altered Hyrule. So Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom shared the same version of Hyrule, even though Tears of the Kingdom expanded Hyrule with the Sky Islands, caves and also the depths. Given we've spent so much time in the Wild era version of Hyrule, I would imagine Nintendo want to switch things up. Rather than go to a new land, they could alter Hyrule even more so than Tears of the Kingdom. And we've seen this done before with Wind Waker, with Hyrule at the bottom of the ocean. Well, next up we've got Labrynna and Holodrum. So Labrynna is the location of Oracle of Ages, and this is Hyrule's neighbour. It's got plenty of history too, given once it had a royal family, but they since got rid of them and became a republic. Perhaps the royal family of Hyrule are looking over at Labrynna, a little worried about their politics and how they could spread to Hyrule. Labrynna could be a good location for the next Zelda game. We've seen a great 2D representation of Labrynna on the Game Boy, but it'd be really interesting to see it in 3D and in an open world. Oracle of Ages was developed by Capcom back in the day, which is an absolutely incredible collaboration. Imagine if Nintendo got together with Capcom these days, fans would go absolutely crazy. Well, Holodrum is the twin of Labrynna and could easily be featured in the next Zelda game too. Oracle of Ages allowed for travelling through time, and Oracle of Seasons allowed for the controlling of the seasons. So there was also this rumoured third entry in the Oracle games, and perhaps the Zelda team could revive that and complete the trilogy. Time travel has been done in recent Zelda games, but controlling seasons hasn't, and that could translate really well to the open world formula. Well, next up we got a fan favourite with Koholint Island. So returning to the location of Link's Awakening would be a lot of fun, but I'm not really sure it would make sense from a story perspective. Link's Awakening had this strange Twin Peaks feel to it with all these weird and wonderful NPCs found throughout Koholint Island. Link's Awakening does wrap up quite nicely at the end, so returning to Koholint Island would be strange from a story perspective. A new Zelda game could take inspiration from Koholint Island, and perhaps it has the same characters from that game, but I doubt we're going to see another Zelda game take place on the same island. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, Link's Awakening is available via the Game Boy on Nintendo Switch Online, plus also you've got the 2019 Switch remake, so if you haven't played Link's Awakening, you definitely should. Well, next up we got a previous version of Hyrule, so talking about Wind Waker before, an ancient version of Hyrule, before the goddess submerged it, could be a really good location for the next Zelda game. One of Wind Waker's main mechanics is the ability to travel via the seas, however the Zelda team could remove the water and allow us to explore that version of Hyrule as a prequel to Wind Waker itself. Well, this is a really good opportunity to shout out my fellow Zelda creator called Wind Waker Unflooded. You should definitely go and check out that project if you haven't already, and what I'll do, I'll put a link in the description. It's a really fantastic project where they're 3D modelled Wind Waker, and they've actually removed the seas. Really interesting, and you should definitely check it out. It's a really fantastic piece of work. Well, talking about the seas, next up we've got Beyond the Seas. So travelling to new continents outside of Hyrule would be a really nice way to explore in the next Zelda game. The boat mechanic in Wind Waker is divisive, but it does open up some really good options for travelling to new lands. It'd be great to experience new people, new royal families, and sail the seas on a really big open world. The current iteration of Breath of the Wild is big, but imagine sailing the seas and discovering a new continent, or maybe even more. The different races and their parts of Hyrule provide the different environments and locales. However, I really want to experience something brand new, and that could be delivered by travelling to new continents. Well, finally, we've got an entirely new land or new location, so many of the locations on this list today have been about going back to previous locations, but ultimately, the best thing would be to go somewhere brand new. I would like the Legend of Zelda to stick with the fantasy style, and I know some folks have brought up the science fiction angle before. I don't really want to see Link flying in a spaceship or shooting a laser. I prefer a sword, a shield, and a horse mechanic myself. I think if we go too far down that science fiction route, I think the Legend of Zelda would lose something, but let me know in the comments what you think about sci-fi or fantasy. Would love to hear your thoughts. So after Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, I think we need to leave this Hyrule behind and have a clean break, and we should go somewhere completely different. Given we spent so much time in the Wild era games, a new location would be best, especially as we move into the next generation of Legend of Zelda. My own personal preference for this new location would be something darker, tougher, more difficult, more dangerous, something along the lines of Elden Ring, but with that Zelda magic in it. I'd still like to see a Zelda there with Link, but perhaps we could move away from Ganondorf, given his recent return in Tears of the Kingdom. Well, finally today, I did reach out to the community and ask the question, where do you want to see the next Zelda game set? And I got a lot of good responses. So let's go through those community comments now. So first of all, Mr. Who wrote in, and Mr. Who says, somewhere brand new for sure. Hyrule has got very stale, and I just don't see a compelling reason to reuse a map instead of creating a new one. My perfect Zelda would reintroduce dungeon items in an open world setting, with a smart world and story design naturally locking off areas without it feeling artificial. An obvious example would be starting off on a large island, with the ability to sail unlocked later. I want the next Zelda to be built from the ground up on the concept of merging open world gameplay with smartly designed segmented content that you access throughout the game. Well, Mr. Who, I think you've absolutely nailed it there in terms of game design, starting off in a small area and then unlocking other areas as you progress throughout the game. I think with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, where you got all of your abilities at the beginning and you could just go anywhere you want, I don't think that is the route that I would like to see for the next Zelda game, and I think you've got a really good concept here, so thank you for writing in. Next up we've got AJ Thomas, and AJ says, if using a similar style as Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, I would like to see a new take on Labrynna and Holodrum. Plus another country with different races, monarchs, religions, architecture, cultures and kingdoms, since Sidon's wife Yona comes from a different Zora domain. Also bringing back vast ocean exploration as we saw in the Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker. Well, thank you AJ, appreciate your comment there, and yes, we talked about that in the video, so a 3D take on Labrynna and Holodrum I think would be really, really good, and you're absolutely right, we want to see, different countries, different continents with new races and monarchs and religions. That would be very, very good, and I do like the idea of bringing back the sailing the seven seas mechanics. I think that would be really, really good. Next up we've got Brendan Owl, and they simply say space. I'm not really sure about that science fiction angle. Space, how is that going to work in the Legend of Zelda? Don't really know, but thank you for writing in your comment. Next up we've got Ancient Sheikah Gamer, and they say, since the game is going to be open air and probably 3D, I think it should be somewhere completely new to avoid it feeling too much like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, considering a lot of the mechanics probably will carry over. A new location would give us completely new enemies, items and collectibles, which I think would be very nice. Well, thank you Ancient Sheikah Gamer, and I think you're right, we do need a new location. You are absolutely correct, that would bring new enemies, new items, and I do think we need to travel away from this version of Hyrule that we've seen in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. We've spent so much time there, and we just deserve somewhere brand new. I'm not sure about the mechanics carrying over, that would be quite interesting. So some of the mechanics didn't carry over from Breath of the Wild to Tears of the Kingdom, but they did make so much of the Ultra Hand mechanic. It's going to be really interesting to see what Nintendo do next when it comes to Link's abilities. Next up we got Mark Car 8, and they say a brand new Link is travelling the lands and stumbles upon a kingdom starting a war with another kingdom. Link gets involved in stopping the war, and then it turns out the one starting the war is being mind controlled by a dangerous new monster. Mark Car 8, thank you for your idea, very, very interesting there. I do like the idea of Link travelling outside of Hyrule and stumbling on another kingdom. I'm not sure about starting a war, but we did touch on it back in the video there with Labrynna, when they're a republic and they used to have a royal family, and perhaps, Hyrule, there's going to be tensions between Labrynna and Hyrule because of that reason. That could be really, really interesting, and as always, thank you for writing in. Next up we got Pina Serafina, and they say a new land, new villain, smaller scale, green-hatted Link, items, multiple open areas with 2 or 3 dungeons to tackle at a time. It is possible to create a non-linear Zelda without giving the player 4 OP tools at the start of the game. So I do like this, new land, new villain, smaller scale, those 3 I really, really, actually, green-hatted Link as well, I do like that as well. Multiple open areas with 2 or 3 dungeons to tackle at a time. So I really like your collection of ideas here, Pina Serafina. Thank you so much. And you say it is possible to create a non-linear Zelda without giving the OP tools at the start of the game. Definitely agree with you there. I don't want to be given everything, all the tools at the start of the game. I want to actually get them as I progress throughout the game, so I get stronger as I go in the classic kind of Metroidvania style. I think that would be really, really good, and thank you for writing in. Next up we've got Remcocchio, and sorry if I butchered your name there, and they say Hyrule and something new. It'd be nice to go further over the world, maybe travel to different continents, different cultures, and somehow have different stories and things happening that are interconnected eventually. Am I thinking too big? No, I don't think you're thinking too big. I think that is probably the natural progression from where we've been. We've been in Hyrule for so long, and now the natural next step is to go outside of Hyrule, and hopefully we could sail the seas to get there, or maybe we could travel there somewhere else. I mean, given all the flying machines that we created in Tears of the Kingdom, I guess there's no reason why we couldn't fly to a new land. But there's something about sailing the seven seas and feeling a little bit more grounded than we did in Tears of the Kingdom. I think that was one of the big feedback points that we've heard constantly from Tears of the Kingdom, that creating those flying machines just didn't really make you feel connected to the land itself. You could just kind of skip a lot of exploration and a lot of travelling. So hopefully we're going to stay a little bit grounded, and I think if we've got a boat on the seas, that is going to really help us out, and thank you for writing in. Next up we got Joseph Ramirez, and they say Hyrule again will be fine if we get a truly modernised and highly realistic Ocarina of Time Twilight Princess adaptation of it, otherwise something entirely brand new. Well, thank you, Joseph, and yes, with the Switch 2, the power of the Switch 2, all the graphics and all the capabilities of the Switch 2, one way the Zelda team could go is a highly realistic version of Zelda, like we saw at the Space World demo, like we saw with Ocarina of Time on the Nintendo 64 at the time, and then Twilight Princess in the later generations, so it'd be really interesting. I guess we're just going to have to wait and see what Nintendo does. Hopefully they're going to be releasing a teaser in the not too distant future. Next up we've got the Real PS Killer, and they say the next game should feature Hyrule and also something surrounding the kingdoms. I don't want to see Termina or Koholint again though. Those were very unique to their respective games. I think it'd be weird to go back there. Well, thank you, PS Killer. Appreciate your comment, and yes, I kind of agree with you. With Termina and Koholint Island, it would be great to go back. And I guess there is that opportunity to spoil or tarnish the memory of those games if we do go back to Termina or Koholint Island again. At Koholint Island, especially, that would be very strange to go back. I think a mixture of Breath of the Wild and Majora's Mask could work really well in an open world setting. But I do like the first point you made. The new game should feature Hyrule and also surrounding kingdoms. It'd be really interesting to explore the neighbours of Hyrule. And also, as Mark Hart suggested earlier, maybe there's tension between the regions, tension between these different kingdoms. I think that'd be really interesting. And as always, thank you for your comment. Well, next up we've got Joel, and Joel says, how cool would it be if we get the backstory to Fierce Deity and it was a fallen Link? Like we start in Hyrule and then we get to Termina where Link falls and turns evil and is later redeemed. Yes, Joel, that would be a very good idea. Again, I do like the idea of going back to Termina and mixing in the open world version of Majora's Mask and Breath of the Wild. I think that would be really good. And the backstory of Fierce Deity, that is very interesting indeed. That's a new one. I haven't heard that one before, so thank you very much for your comment. Well, next up we've got Romulus, and Romulus says, I would like to see something new, maybe a brand new world where you've got to use brand new mechanics, but no clue what that could be. Well, thank you, Romulus. Yes, I do agree with you, something brand new would be really good. I think we spent so much time in this version of Hyrule, we need to go somewhere new, and hopefully that's going to bring brand new mechanics as well. And I'm with you, I'm not really sure what we could have there, but I leave it to the game developers at Nintendo, the geniuses in Japan, currently working on the next Zelda game, and hopefully they're going to come up with something really innovative. And as always, thank you for writing in. Well, next up we've got Gaming Reinvented, and they say somewhere new, hopefully. It's always nice to see brand new kingdoms or a country or a world with its own history and culture, rather than a retread of somewhere we've already been and visited in the series. Well, thank you, Gaming Reinvented. Yes, totally agree with you. It'd be really good to go somewhere brand new. We've had a lot of variation, actually, looking back at the video and all the different lands, Labrynna, Holodrum, Termina, Koholint Island, just to name a few. But yes, let's not go back to somewhere where we've been. Let's go somewhere brand new. I think we could take inspiration from the history of the Zelda games, like Breath of the Wild did and Tears of the Kingdom did, where you drop in those little Easter eggs somewhere. Yeah, maybe we've got some nods to the Dark World, maybe we've got some nods to Termina or Koholint Island, but actually not go back to somewhere where we've already been and somewhere brand new. Completely agree. Next up, GG Burt says, so I'm ready to go somewhere new or a previously visited non-Hyrule with a non-Ganon big bad, ideally with a variety of heroes. Well, thank you, GG Burts. Yes, definitely somewhere new and somewhere non-Hyrule. I think, as I've said before throughout the video, going back to this version of Hyrule again after Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, I just don't think we can do that again, so it's got to be somewhere brand new, or at least somewhere different from this version of Hyrule. And yes, fighting a big bad that isn't Ganon or Ganondorf, I think that would be really, really interesting. And a variety of heroes, that is an interesting one. Haven't heard that before. Do you mean a party of heroes? If you could follow up your comment in the comments of this video, I would really, really appreciate it. Well, finally, we've got a Margot, and they say, somewhere new, however, I would love a proper steampunk Zelda game, set after Spirit Tracks in a new Hyrule, make it open world, but really lean into the train aesthetic. Well, thank you, Margot. I think that's a really, really good idea. And we've talked about earlier feeling connected to the lands, and I think the train version of travel could do that. I know there isn't necessarily a lot of love for Spirit Tracks, but maybe this could work in an open world 3D version. You know, Red Dead 2 did a really good version of a open world with trains. That was a little bit different. Now, that was a Wild West open world. That does make you feel connected to the lands. I just don't want to be flying around in flying machines again. I think that was a little bit of a shame in Tears of the Kingdom. Really didn't help me feel connected to Hyrule, just flying around everywhere. But yes, trains, really interesting concept, and thank you very much for writing in. Well, thank you everybody for your comments, and that is it today, looking at where will the next Zelda game take place. As always, thank you so much for watching or for listening. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below for even more Zelda content here on Triforce Times. Well, thanks again, and I will see you real soon. Well, this video is brought to you by Triforce Times Backstage. This is available through Patreon or YouTube membership, and you're going to get exclusive benefits, plus you'll be able to go above and beyond to support Triforce Times. Free content is core to Triforce Times, and you can continue to enjoy these videos that you know and love. However, if you want to enjoy the benefits like early access, our community Discord, shoutouts in the credits of videos, content polls and exclusive videos, then select the tier that is right for you and join Triforce Times Backstage today. So help me make Triforce Times be even bigger and better, plus you're going to get some added benefits for a small fee every month. Well, thank you for listening, and now it is time to go back to the video.